Hi, Sebastian here from UHT, and this video is all about the new display designer introduced to UHT in version 2.1. In this video, we will recreate our iconic and popular professional design from the old designer into the new designer. So join me on this little ride to learn everything you need to know on how to create new designs using the new display designer. If you're not familiar with the professional design, let me quickly show it to you. Let's open a tournament with the design preloaded. And this is, of course, the design I'm referring to with this little nice arc here with the information spread into the corners and yeah, overall very nice looking design. So let's go and recreate this into the new designer. First, let's go back to our overview and now switch in the top menu to Display Designers and select Display Designer 2. If you worked with the UHT Display Designer in the past already, the new UI should feel somewhat familiar to you, yet everything is kinda different. So let's go over the changes. First of all, the new design doesn't rely on containers which you have to predefine and then assign components to them. The new designer is more like a PowerPoint slide where you can simply drag and drop everything you need onto it and then position everything freely and pixel perfectly. For example, our new design here is empty so far. We first need to start a new design. Let's click on this button in the middle here, and now UHT will ask you for what type of display you want to create the design. For example, are you planning to use a normal horizontally layout display, or do you want to use a vertical display? Because of course the boundaries of the design change, and so you need to pre-select one. You can also use a tablet, a predefinition, a phone, or even provide your own custom resolution. But for the most part and most of you, the usual horizontal display layout will be the one to go. Depending on the size of your screen, you may not fit everything of your design into your canvas here. So you can select one of the predefinitions here and make the design smaller. For example, if you have a very big display, you can choose 4K and you will have the native 4K resolution here. Or you can choose HD for smaller displays like this one seeing right now. So you can see all of the design at once here. We will use this here so you can always see the whole design in one picture without me having to scroll around to show you everything. All right, so now we have our canvas ready. We can start drawing on it, right? So you can see here on the left in the sidebar is a pre-created list of different kinds of components you can use in your design. Those are somewhat similar to the old components, but work a little bit differently on our new canvas. So let's try adding a text component to it. You simply grab it here and drag to your canvas, and when you let it go, you will see a new text component created. Already a difference, you can position this component freely on your canvas. There is no containers which you have to assign it to and plan in advance. You can simply click anywhere on the screen and position it freely. And as you can see, UHT will help you with these guiding lines to position your components, sorry, um, correctly relatively to each other on the same height and same layout structure lines. Let's give this text component some content. As you can see, we have an edit button just like with the old designer. We can select it, and now instead of this inline text input from the old designer, you get a fresh new dialog here where you can enter your text. Of course, you can just enter some text as usually. You can save it here and you will see your text. You have your usual formatting options here, like you can make your text bigger or apply different styling to it. And of course, you can use placeholders inside here. Like this text here shows, you can simply type the two curly brackets here to open a preview. And now you have the selection of all the available placeholders inside the designer together with its description and the current rendered value on the right. So for example, let's say we wanted to display the tournament name here. Simply search tournament and you will find the tournament name here. You can select it, add here, and you will see already the pre-rendered preview here of what it will look like. So even if you type here something in front of it, name, tournament name, it will already apply it here. And if you click Save, you will also see this rendered text inside the designer itself. Now you can, of course, go and resize this component to fit your content and position it freely on your canvas. You can see here, as soon as I drag it over the center of the canvas, it will snap to this center line to help you position your components in the usual way where you usually work around the center, right? So let's just leave it here. Of course, we have different kinds of components here on the left. For example, a shape component, which is new. You can use it to create custom shapes on your design. For example, here rect, and you can select different types like just a square or even a circle. And if you resize the component, it will adapt to your sizing. And of course, you can play around with different values for colors and so on. You can, of course, position those relative to each other. So for example, if I wanted to position them next to each other, centered, you can see here, UHT will help you with this. Another thing, of course, when you have a lot of components on your canvas, they will overlap. And you need to be aware that UHT has a certain order in which it renders the components. So for example, let me select this text component here and assign it a background color, which is pink. You can see here the circle. Let me maybe pick a different color here. Is above this component here. So it renders above it. This is simply because we added the circle after the text component. So it has a bigger or a higher layer in it. As you can see on the left here, we have a component layers section, which shows our components. And if I hover with the mouse over one of the components, it gets highlighted on the canvas. And this is also the order in which the components are rendered. The first component gets rendered first, and then the others under it. So if I want to switch the order, I simply drag this component above the other, and now you can see that our text component is rendered above the circle. This allows me, of course, of stacking the components in the order I like, which will allow us to create very, very complex and visually pleasing designs, which we'll see in a minute, simply by stacking our components in the right order. Another thing is, of course, when you have a lot of components overlaying each other. So for example, let me add another shape here and overlay it over here. So if I want to select, for example, the circle now, I can either click here because it's directly visible, but what if I click here on this component where 3 different components are overlaying each other? UHT will notice this and it will ask you which component do you actually want to select. And it will show you all the components which are available at the location where you clicked. So for example, I clicked here and now I can select our white rect, our dummy tournament name text, or the circle. So I can simply click it, and once it's selected, I can freely position, resize it, or edit it again. This is important to know because the complexer layouts will always have overlaying components, so you need to be aware how to select and how to move them on your canvas. Okay, so just for fun, let's add a few other components, but first let's clean up our canvas. For this, we have multiple ways of doing it. We can select each component individually and just either right-click it and delete it, or we can hit delete on our keyboard, or we can also hold Control or Command on the Mac key and select multiple components at once. We can also move them at once, or you can even go and draw draw a rectangle to select the components and then just delete all of them. Let me just remove everything here from the canvas and maybe show our prices component. This one should be pretty familiar from UHT's old designer. Let's make the font a bit bigger. So you can see here, this is basically the same. We can spread it here with dots and arrange our pricing structure the way we want on the location where we need it. It's pretty self-explanatory. Of course, we can also add images. So for example, let me just add a chip image just to show something. We can scale it, we can rotate it, we can rotate the whole component, mirror the images, and of course also position them wherever we want. Of course, just like with the old designer, it's always important to have an eye on the actual design preview. For this, we also have this little preview button here, and when I click it, I get a different or additional window with the preview, just like with the old designer. Let me quickly show this preview image to you here. You can see here in the right upper corner how it looks like. So whenever I update something here, you will see that the design image, preview image also updates and renders in real time. This is of course important so you always know how your design ends up looking when you actually use it, since the designer can look sometimes a bit different from the actual result. So always check your preview to know how your design actually looks like. Okay, so I think now we covered the most relevant changes. Everything else we will figure out as we go. So let's go and reset our design back to a blank canvas. Let me quickly hide the preview windows because we don't need it right now, and start implementing our professional design that we wanted to create here. So I always like to start the design basically from the layout to the content. So first, let's create our layout for the design. And of course, the layout starts with these yellow lines that we saw at the display. So for this, we of course need a shape first, which will be our top line, our underline, and the other lines. So instead of rect, let's select the horizontal line so we can get it here, and we can already go and position it on our display. Let's say it goes somewhere here. You can also, of course, use your arrow keys to precisely position any component. Let's make it full width and now make it a little bit wider, like 15 or maybe even 20 pixels. Now we have a line, but what can we actually do with it? Let me make it a little bit smaller so it doesn't use a lot of canvas space here. Okay. Of course, the line should be yellow like in the other design. Let me just pick some yellow color here. But the old design had, of course, this little gradients on the edges, and this is exactly what we can also do here. So select the component and go here to the color. And instead of making it a solid color, let's create a linear gradient. And you can see here already it's kind of having a gradient, but the gradient is in the wrong direction. We need to rotate it a bit to about, what is it? I think 90 should do the trick. And you can see here it goes from very bright yellow on the left to basically black on the right. So of course we need to have this transition on both sides. So let's add another color stop and put this color and select the left color stop here and also make it black. And now we have the desired result of having this nice transition from black to yellow and back to black. Of course, we can simply select the component, right-click and duplicate it. Now we have two of those, and we can position the other one where we should have the other line, which should be somewhere around here. sorry, wrong button. Okay, now we have this covered. Now let's create the actual circle for the middle. For this, we have also our analog timer component. Simply drag it on the screen, and you can see here it's pretty small. That's why we need to, of course, increase our clock radius and, of course, our component canvas. Oh, that's a bit too big. Let's make it a little bit smaller. And we also, of course, need another shape. Oh, actually, let me delete this component here, and let's first create our shape here. We will also select a shape and make it a circle. We will assign the same line thickness of 20 here to the circle, so everything matches up. And now we, of course, simply need to position the circle in the correct way to line it up, and I will drag it until I hit the center line here. And now I will drag it one more time to hit the center horizontally. So now I know that this component is perfectly in the middle, positioned perfectly in the middle, sorry. Okay, so now our other components here, for example, the line above is a bit too high. So let me get it a bit down so we have equal distance here from the component to the other one. Actually, let me make this, okay, no. So let me position it centered again. Perfect. And now I use my arrow keys to reduce the size. And you can see here, I have here 60 pixels. Okay, so this is how it looks like right now, maybe even a little bit more closer here. I'll blend in the preview for you so you can see how it looks like, all right, and in the top right corner. Okay, so this looks fine. Of course, we need to make it the same color. So let me select one of the lines, copy the color code here and add it to the color of the circle. Of course, the circle is not a complete circle in the actual design. It only goes until around here, and here we have a different line. So let's create those lines. Let's first drop a new shape, and the shape can stay as a rect, and we actually don't need a border in it, but we need to fill its body. And we need to fill its body with the same color as the background, which is black, to actually create this little square. And now we can position this square somewhere here and simply drag it over here and position the square in the middle. And now we have created this little arc here. Maybe let's make it a bit smaller so we can fit more content here later. So something like this, position it in the center. Perfect, this looks great. And now let's take care about these lines here. For this, we of course add another shape, make it a line, a horizontal line, give it the same width as the other ones, use the same color code to make it yellow, and position the line exactly on the border of the other element. And now we can connect those lines together. Okay, so here we need to use our arrow keys to move this one closer until the preview gets the perfect corner, and resize it here back to the edge. So it looks something like this. And of course, we go ahead and change the background color from solid back to linear. So we have this transition again with 90 degrees, but this time the transition must be the other way around. So we add 180 degrees, and it turns the other way right now, and it already looks pretty perfect. Okay, so now select the component, duplicate it, and move it to the other side here to create the next. Oh, sorry, select the line. move it a bit down to create a perfect edge. And again, duplicate it, move it to the other side, sorry, and revert back to 90 degrees to have the other transition. And again, we want to move this one closer to the edge to get a perfect corner here. Nice. And of course, again, last time duplicating it and moving it up here to the other one, which looks already pretty good. Let me just move it 1 pixel up. And as you can see in the preview, we already have the shape done. We only need to fill this design with some life now. For this, let's re-enter our analog timer back in. And now we know how big it should be. It should be roughly the same as the circle here. So let's increase its size somewhere to here. And now increase the clock radius to somewhere like this. And position it perfectly centered somewhere like this. Great. Now let's increase the text size of the clock so we can actually see the remaining level time. And we're almost good to go. Now we only need to fill the rest of the space with the usual information that we are provided. So let's go from top to bottom and start with the tournament name, which usually sits in the top center. So we just take a new text component, drag it to our canvas, position it at the top, and make sure its size fills the top completely so it can be positioned in the center automatically. So let's enter our 2 curly braces, select tournament name placeholder, apply the change, and also here increase the text size until we have a good sized tournament name. Perfect. Now we're going to start implementing the rest of the information, and all of those will be text components too. And here we can have 2 different ways. We can either create the label and the value for the label in 2 separate text components, or we can use only one text component to create those. And this is usually what I like to do, since it saves us to create a lot of components. And for this, we're going to edit this text component here. And the first one is the players. It shows how many players are left in the tournament. So it says something like players. And in the next line, it says players left variable. You can see the preview here. Let's save it and see how it looks. Let's increase the size a bit. And right now it looks something like this. Let's make it left aligned to match how it looked in the designer before. And now we simply move it to the right location to be displayed. Let's maybe increase the font size even more. Actually, I think this is a bit too big. Let's make it a little bit smaller like this. This looks good. And if you remember it, the labels of the fields usually are in a different color. They are in the so-called accent color. Let's check our colors here. And you can see we have an accent color and a message color, and those are swapped for some reason. So let's go with the message color here. And those colors here are special colors, because you can, whenever you have to enter a color, you can either enter the color directly, or you can enter the name of the color, like accent, text, or background. And whenever you change the color in this dialog, it will change every place where you used this color name automatically. We will see this in a moment, but right now we remember that we will use the message color here. For this, we simply select the component, and we can now change the color by using the color picker here, and you'll find those special colors here at the bottom, and you can simply select the one you like, for example message, as we saw earlier, and it will enter the message name here, and you can see the color is applied automatically. So of course we don't want the players and the actual value for the players have the same color. So we can only change the color for everything inside the text settings, but we can open our text editor here to change the color of parts of the text only. For this, we simply select the part we want to change the color of and hit the color picker here. And we can either select here a different special color or just tell it to be white. So here you can already see in the preview, it should look like this when we save. And yes, it does. Let's maybe make this thing bold so it looks a bit better. And let's change the size of this component to only be as wide as it needs to be so we don't have too many overlapping components on our canvas. And now the hard part is done. We can simply copy paste this component a few times. Let's go and duplicate the component and position it next to the other one, edit it, and the next value is the entries. This represents how many players entered the tournament. So let's see, players dot entered. We apply the change, and now we have already both values here. So let's repeat one more time. Duplicate the component, move it next to the other one. Let's make sure they have the same gap. Go on edit, and the last part was re-entries. And of course, we change our placeholder, search for re-entries. In this case, it is reentry.count. And we apply the change, and you can see here, this is a bit not enough room for this variable. So let's increase the size of this component until we have enough space for it. And we can see here, it overlaps a little bit with our circle here. So let's move all the components a few pixels to the left so we don't have the overlapping anymore. It still overlaps a bit, but we leave it this way. It's just for example purposes right now. Okay, so we can continue with our changes. So let's duplicate it one more time and now move to the bottom part here and align the components so they are on the same vertical lines here. Let's edit this one, and this is the total chips. And for this, we're gonna change, we'll look for chips. And we have chips total. This looks good. Let's save it here and give it some more room to display. You can also remove all these lines so you can see better what the design looks like, or let them in however you like. And now we select the component and duplicate it again, put it next to the other one, and this one is the average. So the average chips of all players. We have average chip stack, and what I like to do is to also show how this average chip stack converts to big blinds. So let's add a slash here and one more variable, average big blinds, something like this. Let's save and increase also the room for it a little bit. And now it renders like this. Maybe we can even separate it a bit further so it looks a bit better. Great. So now let's tackle the right side. Here we do nothing special. We just copy our components again, position them on the same horizontal layout, edit them, and for here we're gonna enter the current level, which is level level and then the current level, and under it we display the blinds. So let's go and search for small blind. It's the current small blind. Then we have the current big blind and the current auntie. Let's save this one, give him some more space to display, and we're already almost there. Perfect. For the bottom, we have the next level's blinds, so let's go and copy this component here and move it down and align it with the other ones. Perfect. Edit. Now we are going to tell, we just call it next level. And instead of current, we take the next versions of it. I just simply copied the text and pasted through all three variables, and we should see the next level's blinds here. Great. Um, the other clock, or the original clock, also had the current level being displayed here over the time, and under the time we had the timer for the next break. Let's implement those two. For this, we copy one more of our elements and simply drag it to the location where we want it and make sure to give it some more space and position it in the center. And now we tell it to display its text centered, like this, and edit its contents and say next break. And here we're going to take use a different variable or placeholder. Look for timer break, and we select which format we want, whether we want to show the hours or only the minutes, and I like to go for the short one, only the minutes. Put insert, save, and now we have our break timer active. So now it's also centered. And we can also copy this one, duplicate it, move it up, and use this for the current level. It's basically a copy of the value on the top right. Current level, perfect. Let's also position it centered. So now we have the same display. Now we're only missing our level message at the bottom. Let's copy this component for this and move it down here. Edit its text. It doesn't need to show the tournament name, of course. It can say something like re-entry closing in, and then just use a timer for our late registration. And here we can opt in for the longer timer, since those tend to be a bit bigger, the time gaps. All right, let's save it here. And now we have our message at the bottom. This can be, of course, anything you want. I just try to copy the timer like it was before. Now we only have a few gaps here on the left and on the right. And if you remember, on the left, we had our chips. So let's check our available components and see if we can find our blind display. No, this is not one of the chip denominations. Simply drag those over and position them inside this area and tell the component how big it's allowed to be. So perfect. Let's select the chip denominations and now tell it that we want the value of the chip be displayed inside the chip. And we want, of course, the chips to be, a little bit bigger. And the chips should also be allowed to wrap on the corners. So if we increase the chip size a bit more, we get something like this. We also increase this text size, allow it to abbreviate the values, so we can make them even a little bit bigger. So I think this looks fine. And on the right side, we had our price distribution. So on the top, we had an info that said, that showed us the, oops, sorry. By the way, you can undo every change with Control Z, or you can hit here the button. If you mess something up, you can simply undo the change. This is very handy. All right, so let's move this text component here. And for it, we will gonna enter the value total price pool. We're gonna make it the same message color, make it align to the left, and increase its size a bit so it's actually readable well. Great. Now we copy it and put here our total price pool. Current total price pool. Perfect. Save it. This one should display its value to the right, and we position it at the same level as the price pool so it shows our current price pool correctly. Great. Now we only need the overview for the prices, and this is also a predefined component like we saw earlier. This should be the prices component. Let's drop it here. And first thing, like always, we tell it how big it is allowed to get. For example, like this. We don't want it to show the price pool total since we have already done this ourselves. And now we can tell it to be spread with dots and be a little bit bigger. Something like this. Of course, you could have a few more prices. They wouldn't fit here anymore, and they would extend past this line and be cut off by the component. And of course, we don't want that. And so we can configure content scrolling. You simply select the component, select content scrolling, enable it, and tell it to scroll vertically when there is not enough space to display everything of it. We can make it a bit faster and tell it to pause at the boundaries. Click Save, and now this component will automatically scroll its content when there's not enough room to display it. Great, but one more thing I think we should cover in this tutorial is conditional displaying. So for example, if your tournament configuration doesn't use chip denominations, you don't want to show the chips, of course. So select this component and you have, like in the old designer, you have a display condition. And you can tell UHT when to display this component and when to hide it. So for example, we can go ahead and tell it to display this component only when chip, let's see, chip we find the right one. Chips display enabled, right? So if chips display enabled is yes, this component is visible. Let's save it here. You can see in the preview on the top right that it's currently visible. And if I go to the dummy tournament settings here, I can disable the showing of chips, and you'll see that they will disappear when the user is not using a chip configuration for this tournament. You can then, of course, position a different component here, like an image or some other placeholder to display instead of the chips. This is your choice. You can configure it however you like. So now our design looks pretty good. It reassembles the professional design very well. And one thing we could also do is, of course, change the font, since the professional font uses a the professional design, sorry, uses a different font. We can open our font configuration, go to Add Font, and search for the font Inter. And this is the one that the original design uses. We go for the regular, close, and now we can select all the components inside our design by simply dragging yeah, a rectangular selection around all components, around the whole canvas. And oh no, sorry, this doesn't work actually. We need to select a text component and then right click it, and then you can select all of the same type. And if you click this, you will see UHT will select all text-based components now. And now you can go ahead and select a different font. For example, the inter font that we just inserted. You will see that the font will change slightly, but it's still noticeable. And now we can also select our clock. It wasn't changed earlier because it's not a text component, and also assign here the inter font. And of course, our chip denominations can show the chips in the inter font and the price distribution. And now we have changed all the fonts. And I think the only thing left to do is to actually create this design and use it inside a tournament. For this, scroll to the top. Just like in the old tournament, you go and hit save. Let me remove the preview here for a second. And of course, you choose a name, new professional design. Creator is me, and some description is provided. And we create the design. And contrary to the old designer, the new designer actually takes great screenshots of your tournament designs. So no more strange coloring here for your design images. All should look crispy and nice. So let's go to the tournaments. Select our tournament we created earlier. And this time go to Display Design. And now select our new professional design which we created and update our configuration. Now let's create a new tournament instance for it. I'll delete the old one and open the timer. And as you can see, our tournament configuration is live. We can go start the tournament clock and everything works like you would expect. We can even go and add a few players. So we actually have a few values to display. And as you can see here, our area stays blank because our configuration doesn't use chip denominations. If I enable this toggle here and go back to our tournament, you will see that the chips suddenly appear here and are correctly displayed like we would expect. All right, so this was the introduction of the new designer. I hope you like it. I hope you see how much easier it is now to actually create or customize a design. It's a simple drag and drop like you would do on any PowerPoint presentation. This makes creating pixel perfect tournaments easier than ever, and I'm really looking forward what you come up with your designs. And if you create a nice design, please post it in our Reddit community so I can even maybe include it into UHD to use for all users. All right, so I would be happy if you subscribe to our channel and help us grow. And then I see you in the next one. Bye.